Hello everyone and welcome to the revisionary classes on financial management. Now friends, before we begin with this class, let me remind you that this is just a revisionary class and this is a revisionary class on this topic, capital budgeting. Basically, it is all about long-term investment decisions. So let me remind you, this being a revisionary class, the focus will be completely on the last day revision. And what you need to understand is I have given complete set of videos on YouTube. I have also created a playlist. There are 40 plus videos covering all the concepts of financial management, and one by one when I am taking you through those concepts in this revisionary class, I have given references to videos and particular question numbers. If you find that your concepts are not clear, I would recommend you to watch that particular video which I have recommended. And if you are just okay with all those concepts, then let's just move ahead with revisions. So what is all about capital budgeting? What is capital budgeting? In simplest words, one of the very important strategic decision taken by an entity would be long-term investment decision. Long-term investment decision will always require careful analysis before the decision is made, because once the entity has invested its money for a long term, it will not be possible for it to revert back. That means not possible for the entity to change the decision. As a result, you need to be extremely careful while analyzing this decision, and then only the decision should be taken. And what is the role of capital budgeting? Capital budgeting will provide all the necessary information that is required for long-term investment decision. So basically, without information, no one can take any decision. Role of capital budgeting is to provide that information. Now one more thing, capital budgeting is not just one particular thing. It is itself a cluster of various methods and techniques which are involved in long-term investment decision analysis. So what I will do is I'll quickly take you through some notes. I may not be able to give you time to write down those notes. Wherever you feel that you want to write notes, you can pause the video, note it down, and then you can move ahead. So let us just begin with some important notes over here. We first begin with the meaning of capital budgeting, and here you will understand that long-term investment decisions require adequate, relevant and correct information about the project before the decision is taken. The role of capital budgeting is to provide such information as is required for the decision. Capital budgeting comprises of various methods and techniques that can be helpful for evaluating feasibility of a long-term investment decision. Such methods and techniques are mentioned below. So let us have a look at those various methods and techniques. First thing what comes is payback period. Then accounting rate of return based on average investment, also known as average rate of return. Then we have accounting rate of return based on original investment. Then we have NPV method, that is net present value method, discounted payback period, profitability index or desirability factor, annualized NPV or equivalent annual NPV. Then we have internal rate of return, that is IRR, then modified IRR, and then concepts of multiple IRR. All these concepts we are going to cover up over here one by one. But before we go ahead with that part, let me give you some important note over here. Most of the capital budgeting techniques will require the use of a very important information, that is annual cash flows. Determining the amount of annual cash flows. Now, how to determine annual cash flows in details I have given you in the concept videos. This is just for the purpose of revision. You need to get started with an amount of profit which is profit before depreciation and tax. From that amount of profit, you subtract depreciation to arrive at profit before tax. Once you get profit before tax, from that you subtract the amount of tax, and the amount what you get after deducting tax is obviously the profit after tax. To this you are going to add back depreciation. Why we add back depreciation? Because depreciation is a non-cash expense. It can reduce your profit, but it cannot reduce the cash flow. As a result, depreciation you have subtracted earlier just for one reason, so that you can know what would be the amount of taxable profit. That is why you have subtracted depreciation. But once the task is over, once we have assessed the amount of tax and the profit after tax, depreciation being a non-cash expense should be added back to to arrive at annual cash flows. This last component, annual cash flows, is basically annual cash flows after tax, or simply cash flows after tax, that is CFAT. Now, once the annual cash flows after tax are determined, all the methods and techniques required in the capital budgeting can be applied easily. So let us begin with the discussion on the first technique, that is payback period. Now, the name itself suggests what is the meaning of payback period. If I am an entity who is willing to invest a certain amount in a long-term project, obviously my first concern will be, when will I get back my money? When will I get back the amount that I have invested? And that is the period which is called as payback period. Now, using your simple common sense, you identify two possibilities, that the amount of cash flows that we have just learned how to determine, that is cash flows after tax, CFAT. So annual cash flows after tax, are they going to be static, that means same amount each year, or are these cash flows going to vary? Both the possibilities separated. Now, if the annual cash flows are constant, then computing payback period is at click of your finger. Let me give you a simple example. Assume that capital investment required in a project is rupees 10 lakhs, and the project is giving you returns in the form of cash flows after tax every year of rupees 2 lakhs. That means annual cash flows are 2 lakhs and the amount that I have invested is 10 lakhs. How long will I require to get back my 10 lakhs? Answer is simple, it will be 5 years. How did we conclude 5 years? Basically 10 lakhs divided by 2 lakhs. That means initial investment, if you divide by annual CFAT, you will get the amount of payback period, provided the annual cash flows are constant each year. If annual cash flows are not constant, then you have to do a little extended exercise. Let me explain even that. Suppose every year the cash flows are different. Don't enter into trap of taking the averages. That will be wrong. What you need to do is, if cash flows are different amounts each year, start accumulating cash flows of each year. That means with the cash flows reported with each year, make one more column in that table titled as cumulative annual cash flow. Now, if cash flow in the first year is 2 lakhs, cash flow in the second year is 2,20,000, cash flow in the third year is 2,40,000, like that, some kind of pattern of cash flows is given to you. What you do is start accumulating those cash flows, make a column of cumulative annual cash flows and start taking the cumulative values. One point where the cumulative value would reach the amount of your initial investment, that will be giving you indication of your payback period. So suppose at exactly 4th year end, you get back your initial investment of 10 lakhs. That means the cumulative cash flow column is indicating exact amount of 10 lakhs. My assumption is 10 lakhs is the amount of initial investment. So if that 10 lakhs is reached at 4th year, then we can directly confirm that payback period is 4 years. However, what will happen if by end of 4th year you don't get 10 lakhs but you get 11 lakhs? And at the previous year end, the cumulative amount of cash flow was 8 lakhs. That means till 3rd year end, you got cumulative cash flow of 8 lakhs. And by 4th year end, you are getting cumulative cash flow of 11 lakhs. That means your realization of 10 lakhs of cumulative cash flow must have happened between 3rd year and 4th year. Then you can interpolate and find how much will be the period required for generating exactly an amount of 10 lakhs of cash flows. So what I would do is I'll give you quick notes on this point, and once you are clear with that notes part, I have given references to each question which is covering the detailed aspect of this. Wherever required, you may feel free to just watch that particular video covering that particular question. So let us take some notes over here, some very important notes about payback period. So first thing what you need to do is, under the heading payback period, we would see it is the period over which the initial investment is recovered without taking into account the interest factor. Now the payback period that takes into account the interest factor also is known as discounted payback period. Now we are not going to talk about discounted payback period right now. That discussion I'll have with you little later. Determining payback period when ACF are constant, when annual cash flows are constant, I told you simply take payback period equals to initial investment divided by annual cash flow. This particular concept has been covered in question number 1 in the regular class videos. Definitely you should watch it if you are not clear with this particular concept. If you are clear with this, let us move ahead and talk about the other possibility, that is for determining payback period when annual cash flows vary each year. The annual cash flows should be accumulated till the time the entire amount of initial investment is paid back by the project. Determine the cumulative ACF as a first step. Then the year in which the cumulative ACF is equal to or greater than initial investment payback period is achieved. If the cumulative ACF is exactly equal to the initial investment, then that same year in which this happens should be considered as payback period. If cumulative ACF is greater than the initial investment, the payback period will be between that year and previous year. Now, how to do this? I have explained this whole concept in details in question number 2 from the regular class videos. You should definitely refer it if you feel so. Alright friends, let us now move ahead with the next concept, that is concept of NPV, that is net present value. Now, right from the point when you started learning financial management, you would have learned one thing, that the two primary objectives of any entity will be wealth maximization and profit maximization. So let me tell you, the concept of NPV is 100% supporting the wealth maximization objective. Now, what is this net present value? So if I look into the meaning of net present value, it is basically present value of a surplus. It is present value of what kind of surplus? Whatever rate of return you are expecting, that rate of return you will be able to generate from a project, and if you are capable of generating a rate of return higher than that, the present value of that surplus return is nothing but NPV. Now, many people have a focus in their mind that NPV, meaning they define it this way: total present value of cash inflows minus total present value of cash outflows. Now, this is not the meaning of NPV, friends. This is basically the manner in which NPV is computed. What I want you to understand carefully is the meaning of NPV, because if that is clearly understood, calculation anyone can do. Concepts are important. So look at one thing. Suppose I am expecting a rate of return of 15%, and suppose I have invested rupees 1 lakh today. So after 1 year, I must be getting 1 lakh plus 15% returns, that will be 1,15,000. Suppose there is a project which is offering me cash flow of 1,18,000 in 1 year. So what you will do? My expectation is 1 lakh invested and 1,15,000 I want to get back after 1 year. But I am actually getting more than that. That means the actual rate of return is more than what I have expected. So how much is that surplus? I have invested 1 lakh today with an expectation of 15% per annum returns. My expected cash flow after 1 year should be 1,15,000. If I am actually getting 1,18,000, means I am getting surplus of 3,000. Now this 3,000 of surplus is not at today's value. It is a value accumulated by end of the first year. That means if that is the surplus after 1 year, what would be the present value of that surplus? That present value is nothing but NPV. Now to simplify this concept, what you can do? Determine the present value of 1,18,000 using 15% as your expected rate of return. That will be total PV of cash inflow, and from that when you subtract 1 lakh, you will be getting NPV. And you can check this NPV, what you obtain by this way, is nothing but the present value of rupees 3,000 which you will receive after 1 year with expected rate of return of 15% per annum. You can verify the calculations. Now what happens? When an NPV is a positive amount, it is indicating that you are going to earn more than what you expect. When the amount of NPV is 0, that means you are going to earn exactly that rate of return which you are expecting. And when NPV is negative, it indicates that you may not earn what you are expecting. In simple words, our decision of whether the project should be accepted or not is completely dependent on the amount of NPV. So if the amount of NPV is positive, indication is clear, you are getting more than what you expect, go for it. Means the decision should be that yes, project is acceptable. Second possibility that NPV is 0. If NPV is 0 means you are not getting any surplus. Still, you are getting what you expected, correct? If you are getting what you expected, there is no harm in accepting the project. So your decision will still be yes when NPV is 0. Only when NPV is negative means your rate of return what you are earning is less than what is expected. And that is where you should not invest into such projects. Now, from where does this expected rate of return come, which actually is called as discounting rate? Now, this is a fundamental conceptual question which many students are confused about. Now, let me explain one thing. Whatever is the rate of return prevailing in market for a particular type of risky project, and if you are going for such kind of project, your expected rate of return will be the one that is prevailing for such type of projects in the market. So your expected rate of return could be market based. Your expected rate of return could also be dependent on the cost of capital. So you are arranging capital by incurring what cost? So here I want you people to carefully understand this conceptual discussion, even though this is a revisionary class, but this point is very important. Various possibilities. Suppose I have arranged capital by putting in debt, preference shares, equity shares, multiple sources of finance. I have computed cost of capital for each of these components, and then I have also worked out the overall cost of capital as weighted average cost of capital. That weighted average cost of capital is my true cost of capital. That could be one rate that can become a discounting rate. So my cost of capital, suppose the weighted average cost of capital is 15% per annum. One thing parked aside. Now we see that if I invest this amount in any similar project, the rate of return what I am getting is 18% in the market. Now, carefully use your brain and understand this point. It is understood that your cost of capital, the true cost of capital is 15%. But if you are investing in this particular project, you are losing an opportunity to invest into any other project of similar risk type where the rate of return is 18%. That means if you are investing in this project by losing an opportunity of investing your money in other project which otherwise could have provided you 18% return, your opportunity cost of capital will be 18%. So your true cost of capital or opportunity cost of capital, whichever is higher, will actually become your expected rate of return. So obviously you are not going to expect just 15% returns, which is your cost of capital. You are going to expect something which is prevailing in the market. And your expectation cannot be unrealistic. You cannot say that I want expected rate of return to be 100% per annum. That way I can even expect 500% per annum, 1000% per annum. But that is foolishness. Be realistic when you are talking about your discounting rate. So what happens at your level, discounting rate is generally given in the question. But you should fundamentally understand that discounting rate is basically that rate of return which is your opportunity cost of capital, which becomes a cutoff rate. What is the meaning of cutoff rate? Cutoff rate is such a rate below which you will not invest. So in my example that I have just given you, even though your true cost of capital was 15% per annum, your opportunity cost of capital in this example was 18% per annum, and you don't want to earn anything less than 18%. So 18% per annum becomes a cutoff rate, and that becomes your discounting rate, and that is also considered as your expected rate of return. So all your present value calculations will be applied by using 18% per annum as discounting rate in this example. So what I'll do is I'll make you understand one thing very clearly, that the manner of computing NPV is total present value of inflows minus total present value of outflows. What is the meaning of NPV? NPV is the present value of that surplus which you will earn over and above your expected rate of return. So if that NPV is positive, it indicates that you are earning more than what you expect. If it is zero, it indicates that you are earning exactly what you expect. If it is negative, it indicates that you are earning less than what you expect. Therefore, a project should be rejected only when NPV is negative. However, when NPV is positive or zero, the project is definitely acceptable. So let us quickly go through some important notes over here with respect to concept of net present value. So first of all, meaning of NPV, what I have just explained to you. NPV is the present value of that surplus which the investor can earn over and above the expected rate of return. NPV is determined in the following manner. NPV equals to total PV of cash inflow minus total PV of cash outflow. With respect to NPV, the following important points must be considered. Let us look into these points one by one. So the first point over here is the present value of any cash flow will be obviously less than the cash flow itself. Such present value is therefore also known as discounted cash flow. The rate of interest which is used for determining the present value of cash flow is also known as discounting rate. The discounting rate indicates the expected rate of return for the investor. It is also known as cutoff rate, which indicates minimum rate of return that is expected. If the investment project is capable of generating a rate of return higher than cutoff rate, then investing in such project is definitely beneficial. It indicates positive NPV. When NPV is positive, it indicates that the project is capable of generating a rate of return which is higher than cutoff rate. Let us move ahead and record other points. Implications of NPV. If NPV is positive, it indicates that investor is earning more than expected. If NPV is negative, it indicates that investor is earning less than expected. If NPV is 0, it indicates that the investor is earning exactly what is expected. If NPV is negative, the investment proposal should not be accepted because the rate of return of the project is less than the expected rate of return. If NPV is 0, the investor should accept the investment proposal because the investor still earns that rate of return which is expected by such investor.